In a moment, we are going to be able to sing the Hallel. And normally, we would all be here together in the synagogue. We would sing together. But whether or not we have a minyan or we're by ourselves, Hallel is one of those sections of the service that is sung. And it is sung specifically on festivals and on holidays. Hallel, if we think about it, is an additional opportunity for joy. It's an additional opportunity for celebration. And the rabbis talk about it as a fulfillment of the mitzvah, V'samachta b'chagecha. You shall rejoice in your holidays. Now, normally, when we think of V'samachta b'chagecha, we think about the food. We think about the Seder. We think about all the fun things, being out in the sukkah, all those things that we do physically in order to rejoice in the festival. But the rabbis remind us that we now need to rejoice not only physically, but spiritually as well, as the holiday comes. So Hallel gives us that opportunity for the spiritual rejoicing, for the spiritual celebration during this holiday. Actually, for those who went through and did the Seder at home and did the full Seder, you already sang Hallel last night. It's one of the steps of the Seder. It is so important and so much a part of our rejoicing that it's been included in the Seder service as well. We're going to come back to that in a second as to why. Because if we look in our texts and we study about Hallel, we see that there are actually two different things that the rabbis refer to as Hallel. First, they talk in the Talmud about Hallel Hagadol, the great Hallel. Ironically, Hallel Hagadol is just one psalm. It's Psalm 136. If you want to look at it and see at least part of it, you can see it in your Siddur on page 92. It is the psalm that has the stanzas, and for each one of them it says, Ki le'olam chasto, God's mercy and God's grace will be there forever. That is considered to be Hallel Hagadol, the great Hallel. And we actually did say that in the Seder last night as well. So why then is there this second Hallel? Isn't that enough? Isn't it enough just to say, okay, on this holiday, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, whatever it may be, we will recite Psalm 136, the great Hallel, and we're done. We've now fulfilled our obligation. Well, this second Hallel is also fairly early in our sources, and it is a collection of 6 psalms that are sung together with a blessing. And the Talmud in Psachim, in the tractate of Pesach, asks the question, why is it that we recite this Hallel? It says specifically, and now that there is the Hallel Hagadol, the great Hallel, which is superior to the standard Hallel, since it's Hagadol, the great one. Why do we recite this standard Hallel? And the answer that the Gemara gives is that this Hallel contains 5 different historical points. It talks about the Exodus from Egypt. It talks about the splitting of the Red Sea. It talks about the giving of the Torah. It talks about the resurrection of the dead. And it talks about the time in the future of the Messiah. These 5 points, the rabbis say, tell a story. They tell the story of the Jewish people from the very first moment that we became a community as we left Egypt, all the way into the future, the story that has not yet been told about the end of time and about the Messianic age when everyone will know God, there will be peace on this earth. This story, the rabbis felt, was so important to tell, was so important to recognize, that we say this is the Hallel that we say is part of our liturgy, and not just the other one, the Great Hallel. And I think it's very poignant to recognize that, especially on the holiday of Passover, where telling the story is so much a part of what it is that we do. It's one of the fundamental mitzvot, as I mentioned last Shabbat. Perhaps that's why it is part of the Seder. It's telling the story in yet another way. Not telling the story just of slavery until now, but telling the story of slavery until the end of time, telling the complete story. It makes us understand that the story is not yet finished, that there is still much more to write, and perhaps that's part of the nature of its celebration. That we are part of this great story that is being told of the Jewish people and of the relationship between God and humanity. What an amazing story to be a part of. And when we celebrate, when we say these prayers, we're celebrating not only this particular holiday, but the fact that we are part of this story, that we are part of this process of history that links us from one generation to the next, all the way back to the time of the Exodus, and all the way into the future, into the time of the Messiah and the end of days. That is something to be happy about. That is something to celebrate. That is something that we can use to fulfill the mitzvah of V'samachta b'chagecha, to be joyful and rejoice on this holiday. It is a spiritual celebration, not just a physical one, and I hope that you all will join me as we sing together and as we celebrate this holiday in spite of the challenges that we are facing.